Hey, it's Zisteau, and this is another Satisfactory video. This is episode number 19, and we are getting close to 400 hours played in this game. So maybe we need a bit of a recap. Here's a recap. We built a starter base, built some outposts, and we powered the whole thing with coal power and geothermal generators. Then we started working on the mega base, which is going to require a ridiculous amount of power. So far, we've made the heatsink portion of the build, and at this point, we were straining our power network to its limit. But now we can continue building more mega base because... So here's the plan. We want turbo motors, and we've been working towards radio control units, the most complicated part of the puzzle. So far, we've taken care of the heat sinks, so next we will take care of the remaining ingredients, quartz crystals, and supercomputers. So for this portion of the mega base, we're gonna need a lot of quartz and a lot of oil. So let's travel up to the top of the map, and let's do some planning. And maybe this is far enough. Instead of going all the way up to the totally zoomed out map view, we only really need to see the northern part of the map for this, so probably right here is good enough, but it is awfully foggy, so there is something we can do. We can hit Control-Shift-L, that enables the console. We hit tilde, and it opens the console little command line, and then I hit the up arrow and hit R.Fog0. Bam! Okay, suddenly we can see for miles. We can see all of our outposts. There's some geothermal generators. Our original oil outpost. Way over there, you can see the heatsink stuff. Over there, you can actually see the nuclear power plant and the nuclear waste dump way over there on the other side of the map. So this is great. This is going to be great for planning. We need to make supercomputers now, and that's going to take a whole bunch of oil. All along this coast is oil. And then we're going to need a bunch of iron and copper and caterium. If I look at the map, it's a pretty big area. So one of the things I like to do to start to organize all these resources and figure out where to build things, how to organize them, how to group them together, is to run around and place beacons at all the locations where we're going to be getting the different resources. So we may as well just dive off right here and get started. And there we go. The north coast here is littered with oil patches, and we're going to need almost all of it. And then all the ore we're going to need is more or less clustered around a central area. Just a guess, but I'm thinking that the oil will be less laggy to pipe over a long distance than the ore patches, which will be on belts. So we probably want to think about building somewhere around here. And here we are. This is the area we're going to be building supercomputers and quartz crystals. At a certain point, we'll have to bring over the heat sinks from the heatsink build so that we can combine all three into radio control units. It's quite a lovely area, isn't it? And we're going to place a gigantic factory right on top of it somewhere. I'm thinking in front of this cliff would be nice. That really worked well with the heatsink area, maybe in front of that waterfall. The big giant sky moth, he flies right over that waterfall. And it might be cool to have some interaction there. But before we can do much, I do need to set out some platforms, and we need to do some configuring, some prototyping of what the thing is actually going to look like. I set up some local concrete construction over there. There is a limestone patch, and so I set up some constructors, and they are delivering tons of concrete, which we are really going to need. This is something I definitely recommend you do in your game, is set up a local concrete production wherever you're building. But we need to figure out some details, so let's place some foundations. So, step 1, lay out a bunch of machines. All the different machines here represent one unique step in the chain of recipes that end up at the top of the pyramid with radio control units way down there with that manufacturer at the end and supercomputers just behind it. As you can see, there's a lot of steps here, so it's going to be a bit of a complicated thing to make this logistically more efficient. We want the ingredients for each recipe, the machines that provide it, to be more or less close by the machines that need it. And there's also a different size for the different types of machines. The refineries are very tall, the manufacturers are tall and wide, and some of the other ones, most of the other ones, are much smaller. Hey, you're not a recipe. Recipes only. Get out of here. Anyway, despite some interference from the local wildlife, here is the first rough draft of what the build's going to look like. We got the big manufacturers here on this floor, except for that one currently, and then I put the biggest machines, the refineries, up top. They need twice as much height as any of the other buildings, so I thought it made sense to put them up top. We got radio control units there, and then behind it, its ingredients, got the quartz crystals. And we're going to have to bring in heat sinks via train, and then supercomputers right here. They need plastic, which is directly above them right now. And then computers needs rubber, which is there. And in between the two, we're going to have a refiner for dealing with the excess residue from those two processes. Going to turn that into coke and send it into an awesome sink. So this is an okay start, but as you can see, I sort of ran out of space to go up and down to place the different ingredients, and all these machines are just sort of scattered there. Oh yes, that's starting to look much nicer, much more organized. We've got all the manufacturers on a single floor now, and I've managed to string all the different ingredients with the recipes that require them, and further up the chain all the way to the end with the radio control units. Now that I have put all the manufacturers on a single floor, we've got extra space on these other floors. So what we really need to do is we need to compress this to take up all the loose space. I guess we need to kind of squeeze it. Yeah, we need to squeeze the build, so we need to give it the squeeze! Oh wow, that worked. We gave it the squeeze, and now it's all squozing, and we have a finalized build. Or at least a finalized slice anyway. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers and spreadsheets, but here is how I derive how many of any given machine that we need. I look at the recipe for turbo motors, and I see that each turbo motor needs a certain amount of radio control units, and then I take the radio control unit recipe and I just keep multiplying the base ingredients out until we get all the way to the bottom, and then we know how many machines we need and how many raw materials. You can see each of these splitters here is where the raw materials are going to end up. We've got all the copper and iron for the copper alloy ingot down here on the bottom. And then below it is some caterium as well as silica. That is cheap silica, so quartz and limestone. But this thing is only a slice of the total build. We actually need to reproduce this thing 18 times. This guy is 3 foundations wide, and 22 long, and 13 tall. So now that we know what the size of this thing is, we can extrapolate out what the total size of the entire build's going to be. We can figure out where it's going to go. So 3 wide, 22 long, 13 high, times 18, and we're going to put a space in the middle of the build for the belts and the pipes, just like we did with the heatsink. And we find ourselves needing a ton of space to place a build of this scale. Way more than I was actually thinking we would need. I was hoping to line up the build with this cliff and let the big moth thing fly underneath or through it or something, but the scale of the thing is just way too big to allow for that. If we look at the map view, you can see that the cliff I wanted to use is not straight, it curves around, and we're not going to be able to place our build in front of it because it's just bigger than the cliff. And it's too tall, and it's not going to line up with anything, so I don't think this is going to be the right place for the build. Unfortunately. I think we might have to put it out here on top of this thing. That looks like about the right amount of space. Oh yeah, that does look way better. There's a decent amount of space around the entire edge of what will become the build, and the cliffs and all the different little terrain features. They seem to hold this thing like it was meant to sit there. Compare with this. Squeezed into the corner, and then tons of space over here in this weird, awkward triangle, not lining up with anything. Yeah, this is not good. This is way better. So the next step, we need to start taking all of the different ore patches and the oil, and we need to pipe them and belt them and get them all up to this point. So, at this point, all the pipes have been built, and they stretch all the way over to the build. They stretch a really long way, and I've made the decision this time to paint things as we go. So, I do have some preset colors for these things based on previous expansions. This is the oil refinery color I've been using. So, we'll just make that color, and I don't know, maybe the power poles as well, and also the little pipe holders, and then the pipes themselves have colors based on what they're holding. So this is the color for crude oil. It's basically a very dark greenish, almost black. We're gonna, oh, I can't slide here, I guess, huh? There we go. Gonna paint all the pipes up. We're gonna paint things as we go. We got painted pipes. Pipes, 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 painted pipes, painted pipes. So, some time has passed, and not only are all the pipes painted, but all the belts have been built. They are connected up from the different ore patches we saw on the map view earlier, and they end up right here. I have been skipping over some details in this episode. I haven't gone over what all the different recipes are in the build, and that's more or less intentional. I've been trying to show all the different things you have to juggle when planning and building a project of this size. And next episode, we will get into more detail when we plug the thing in. But one of the things I do want to work on before we build more of these slices, I would like to try to figure out a bit of what it's going to look like with its cosmetic details. We did some pillars for the nuclear build a few episodes ago, and I really liked the way those looked. So I think I want to try something like that. This big thing is going to be sitting in the middle of this area. It's not going to have a cliff or a mountain to connect itself to. So pillars are probably going to be appropriate. And with a build this size, maybe we can try the similar 2x2 pillar idea from the nuclear build. Have a similar build style for the different parts of our scattered distributed megabase. So I'm working on the pillars, and I think I'm going to go with 3 sets of pillars, evenly spaced with a bit of overhang on either end, and probably do some sort of inverted ramp thing for the edge there. And then I'm thinking of having another level here, which is just cosmetic, kind of like the big truss bridge thing I did for the nuclear fuel dump. And then from this point to only have maybe 2 sets of pillars going all the way down to the ground. So it looks more, a little bit more mechanical, a little bit more like a big structural bridge kind of truss engineering thing. Actually, now that I'm looking at this thing, I might want to do something like what I did for the nuclear waste dump and use the curved foundation guys and just invert them and have a more truss-looking structure. So I actually went and took a look at the nuclear dump site and how I built that bridge and how the thing was detailed, and at this point I'm just deconstructing and rebuilding half of this thing and comparing it with the previous version and then keeping the one I like better and then doing that over and over and over again. That's how you make cool stuff. Keep banging your head against the wall until you get something nice. Mm-hmm. Nope. Okay. Hey, that doesn't look too bad. Well, I think that is a decent start. Next episode, we're going to build the rest of the slices for this build. We need 9 of these on either side, 18 total, 3 sets of 3 on either side. This is the center one, so there's going to be 4 to the right and 4 to the left. Or we could say that maybe I'll expand 1 to the right and 1 to the left. We'll have a set of 3, and I can maybe update this. I don't think we want 9 sets of columns. That's probably going to look like too much. Maybe 3 sets of columns, so I might want to revise this once we have 3. And then I'll copy that 3 times and take a look at it again. And then once that's finalized, we'll build it over there. Oh my gosh, that's going to be a lot of building. That's a lot of things. Haven't even updated the look of the rest of it because I think I want to wait until we have at least 3 to figure out how these pillars connect up through the different floors. Or are the floors just going to be floating? I'd prefer not to, but it's hard to say with just a single slice. So I think we'll wait until the next episode to tackle the rest of that. That does leave this episode a little bit short, huh? Belts, belts, belts. Haven't painted belts, haven't painted belts. Scaffolding with belts, scaffolding with belts. Belts, 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 belts. Belt, belt, belts. Haven't painted belts, belt, 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 belt.